everyone, and welcome to another episode of Women Who Inspire. In this series, we speak to really amazing women who have gone through difficult situations but have emerged better from that situation. The purpose of this series is to show women that we all go through what are perceived as negative emotions, but these emotions are really God's way or the universe's way of telling us that we are built for something better, something stronger, and it is leading us to that purpose. My name is Shrestha Tiwari. I am the director of the Self-Worth Leadership and Empowerment Consultancy, and I am also a motivational speaker and wholeness guide, meaning that I help women who are stuck looking for purpose become whole. Today, I am extremely excited to have with me Ceronne Bayley. Ceronne is a fellow Hilarian, so I'm more excited because of that. When you meet persons who you went to school with, your paws just raise. She is a corporate governance consultant and the owner of Ceronne Bayley's Consulting Services. She holds a Bachelor of Laws with honors from the University of London and an MBA from Arthur Lockjack, the University of the West Indies. She is currently pursuing a chartered status as a corporate governance professional. Welcome, Saron, to the series. Thank you so much for being a woman of inspiration. How are you today?
Hi, Shrestha. Thanks for having me. I am doing very well today. Thanks. Very, very well. How are you?
I am good, and I am excited to hear about your very, very purposeful and tender story that I know all of us who are women and mothers are going to relate to. So, Saron, I invite you now to share your story.
Oh my. Okay. My story begins in 2018. In 2018, my husband and I found out that we were expecting a second child. Now, we already had one son, right? And truth be told, for all intents and purposes, we were good with that one son. So the pregnancy itself was a surprise. Yeah, it wasn't planned in the least. But after a while, you get over the shock of a pregnancy, we decided, okay, we're having another child, let's just embrace it and deal with it. All children are blessings, whether they're planned or not. But so that was in May 2018, we found out we were expecting. So we go to our regular doctor's visits every month. We're going to make sure everything's fine. The doctor has his ultrasound machine in the office and we're checking every month as we should. So fast forward to the end of October 2018, towards the end of October, we have our regular checkup. I was in my seventh month of pregnancy at that point in time. And instead of the usual response from the doctor is there with the ultrasound machine, surprisingly quiet. My doctor is not a quiet doctor. So he gets quiet and he's looking intently at the machine. So, we're starting, my husband is there. I think my son was also at that visit. We always used to go together. And so he's saying, so he stops and he says, okay, we need to check something. What he noticed was excessive fluid in the amniotic sac. So the sac that the baby is in had too much fluid. So apparently that is something that the doctors also test and whatnot when they're doing the ultrasounds. So he didn't raise an alarm just yet. He sent me to West Shore to get a more detailed ultrasound. So he didn't want to say exactly what was going on. He just said, there's a little too much fluid in the sac. So we went to West Shore to get a more detailed ultrasound. And what they found was too much cerebrospinal fluid in the ventricles of the baby's brain. So that is a condition called hydrocephalus. I had never heard of that before in my entire life. So here you have a pregnancy, right? Unexpected one at that, and you have a potential issue with the baby, right? And we were told all about hydrocephalus. Hydrocephalus is a condition where there's excessive cerebrospinal fluid in the brain. So we all have cerebrospinal fluid going through our brains all the time, right? It goes through the brain, down the spinal column. It's a part of the brain. So for some reason, my unborn son, was producing too much. There was too much. So went back to his office and he made the official diagnosis that the baby does in fact have hydrocephalus. And I remember he called us into the office, right? This was, first of all, when he got the results from West Shore, it was not something that he would just speak about over the phone. So he invited to come to the office. So at that point in time, it's like, okay, it's not something he could have spoken about over the phone. We have to actually go in. So right away, you start to get nervous. Like this is something serious.
Yeah.
Go into the office, takes us to the back room and asks us to sit. So again, nerves. Is something wrong. My husband and I, we sat and he sat down. He was very serious. And he said, if you have the opportunity to leave Trinidad and Tobago to deal with this, I think you should. Yeah, there is a problem. It could potentially be very dangerous. It could potentially be fatal, but there is no way to say at that point in time. But he highly recommended that we leave the country. I went, you forgive me if I get a little emotional while giving the story, but you know,
of course.
it was an ordeal. So I decided, okay, let me go to Portishead. He did forms, he did all the documents, all the reports, images, everything. And I decided, let me go to Portishead, let me see what I will be told there. And the issue of termination came up, right? The doctor looked at the documents and he said, well, I suppose your doctor would have explained to you what this is. And he said, he didn't suggest it, but he did say that most women opt to terminate. So that was, now, I have to say too that I am a woman of strong faith. I am a Christian, and I you know, in everything that I've battled before, this was not my first battle. It would not have been my first battle in life, you know. So I was no stranger to fights, and I have fought battles before and won and overcame.
Right.
So while he is talking to me about that, in my mind is like, no, this is another battle to win. This is another battle to win because I have enough examples, if in my lifetime, short as it may be, of battles fought and battles won with God and with Christ. So I decided against that, and I went downstairs to the car and I said to my husband, get me a ticket to New York. I have family in New York. I haven't seen them in years. This is not family. They've lived in the States for a long time. And my life was in Trinidad. I settled in Trinidad. So I just said, get me a ticket to United States. Get me a ticket to New York. I'm going to my family in New York. And this is before I even called them, you know. And I called them. Of course, they were surprised to hear from me out of the blue. And they said they were very supportive. They said, yes, come. And straight up, within 1 week, on November 1st, 2018, I was on a plane to New York. And I had not one single problem in the United States. Not one. And, you know, there would have been, I was going into the unknown as far as I was concerned. And even though I would have fought battles before, to this, still to date, is my biggest one. It was my biggest one. I had no idea what I was going into. I hopped a plane And I was just going. I'm not an American citizen. I have no permanent residence, nothing like that. I was just hopping a plane, going for help. I researched hydrocephalus, and when you research too much, I started to get a little scared, so I decided to stop doing that.
Yes.
Let me just go on. And every single obstacle that you could think of that could have gone wrong was just shut down. It was just shut down. Finances were not as we would have liked at that point in time, right? But we were able to get the ticket to go to the United States. My family was very welcoming. The support from the hospital that I ended up at, the doctors were very supportive. They monitored the pregnancy all throughout, weekly monitoring from the time I got there. A childhood friend that I had known, that I used to play hopscotch with in the yard when I was young. I grew up in Belmont, and we used to play in the yard. That childhood friend, she was working at that hospital, so she was instrumental in helping me and getting the doctors to assist me, and even through the ordeal, every week they would check. We would have ultrasounds, weekly ultrasounds, and the fluid was growing. It was building and building, right? What they were saying is they would hope that the fluid wouldn't grow at a fast rate, it would be manageable, but it was still something time just has to tell us what is going to happen. From throughout November and December, my son did end up with grade 4 hydrocephalus, which is a severe hydrocephalus. The fluid kept on growing and growing. But somehow, in the midst of all of that, I just knew, I had this knowing that I was part of some miracle. I was witnessing a miracle. I just had that assurance, and I never doubted it. In spite of what was going on. The doctors would say what they need to say because they are doctors, and they have to tell you the truth. They have to tell you what their knowledge tells them to tell you. And yes, and you listen and you're going forward. But I just had this knowing that my son was going to live. And my son was going to overcome this, and he was going to live a full life. And that he had this wonderful life ahead of him. That was that was my focus throughout the entire time going to the doctor's visits. He was born on January 7, 2019, and his cry filled the room. His cry, it wasn't a faint cry, and 3 days later, he had brain surgery at 3 days old. Tiny baby brain surgery, and that was successful. He stayed in the NICU for 2 weeks. During that 2-week period, we were hit with about 4 different life-threatening problems. There was an issue with blood, there was an issue with his heart, there was an issue with kidney. So for 2 weeks, his first 2 weeks of life, we battled numerous attacks on his little life. And I don't know, sometimes I would cry, but I somehow felt an assurance that I can't really explain too much. It was this assurance that I was witnessing a miracle. So many different people were praying for us at different parts of the world, and I was just there. It was my husband had to stay at home with my older son. So it was really me. It was just me and my son. His name is Javon. And so my family, they have their life, they have to go to work, so as much as they open their homes to me, it was really me and my son in this with God. And we just stuck it out. It took faithful endurance on my son's first birthday. He was born January 7, 2019. Throughout 2019, he saw 8 specialists. He had a team of 8 pediatric specialists that he would see on multiple occasions. So even keeping the appointments was, we kept we did not miss an appointment. For the blood issue, they would have to draw the number of needles that got stuck into that little vein is, I can't count. So they had to keep monitoring the blood. And on the 7th of January, 2020, his heart was no longer a concern. They had no longer had concerns about his heart. They no longer had concerns about his blood. The issue with his kidney was fully resolved. There were no major concerns there. And the shunt so far has been functioning beautifully. Javon is responding. He had physical therapy from very early, right? Early intervention. Javon responded to the physical therapy, right? In terms of lifting his head up, all his milestones. He needed a physical therapy, but he was meeting them. And now Javon is 3. He just turned 3, January 7th. Javon is mobile around the house. He's not walking unassisted yet, right? You can hold his hand and he'll walk with you, right? But he's counting, he's saying the alphabet. He is a chatterbox. He has this smile that he brings joy to everyone around him, and he's just, every time I look at him, I get to see and experience a miracle every single day of my life when I look at Javon. And I remember everything that we went through and how we just had to persevere and we had to overcome, and God was there with us. We never stopped praying. We never blamed God or anything like that. He was there, and in my mind, he was my way out. He was my way out of the trial, just as he was in all the other battles. He has been my way out of fiery trials, and Javon is he's my little miracle.
Wow, that is such a powerful story on so many levels. And for you as a mother, the strength of a mother, you definitely epitomize that to such a high degree. As I'm a mother myself, and I was so worried. I had my daughter a little bit later in my life. I didn't have those problems, but I was so worried about her when I was pregnant. I had no problems, but for me, I was just worried about losing her because of my age. But I can't even imagine, or I can't even relate to know that something is wrong with your baby is an unimaginable thing. And I admire so much that you talk about your faith and your connection to God, because sometimes we don't understand what is going on, but you, right through this ordeal, you continuously believed in that higher supreme being. That purpose for you is through Christ. And that belief really helped you get you through. It put you in contact with family who you didn't speak to for a while. And, sometimes you see all these posts that people vex because this one didn't call them in a year. But everything has its place and time. And when it's ready, it will be there for you. And you speak about that, going to New York and just having faith, not necessarily having the funds to do what you probably needed to do. You didn't know all that you needed to do, but you really just went on faith and happened to meet a childhood friend in the hospital, which again is amazing how the universe and how God and everything works. And even when the condition became worse, you still held that faith and you were grounded in the fact that you were chosen to receive a miracle and you are going to be the voice for this miracle. And I am so glad you chose, because you were one who reached out to me. I am so glad you reached out to me. I'm so glad you told your story. Even in speaking, you said, forgive you for being emotional, but our emotions tell us how far we have come. This is such a monumental thing that you have gone through. And I haven't gone through with you, and I am so emotional for you. Just proud of you for everything that you have had to endure, and to have the strength to speak to it in order to inspire other women. And I do want to say this will air in March, but I'm filming this in January. So I want to wish Ceronne a happy belated birthday. Thank you so much for coming to the world, and that smile. And when you were speaking about him, all I can feel is his infinite love for you. When you spoke about the cry and when you look at him, that's all I can feel. And I want to ask you if there's anything you would like to tell mothers specifically who may be in a situation where they're dealing with something with their child. Is there anything you would like to see?
Yes. I just want to say that God, he draws very close to those in distress. Very, very, very close. And sometimes even when we may not want to acknowledge him or hear him or respond, he is very, very close to persons in distress. So I would encourage mothers who are going through any ordeal with their child. You know, right now we are in the midst of a global pandemic, and so many people are getting sick, and so many people are scared and terrified. Right? Many persons still come to me to hear about Ceronne just to get a oomph to face the day. You know, that we need to call on him, cry out to him in distress. You know, and somehow when you're in distress, it's not just that you're saying prayers, because you know you're supposed to say prayers. It's a real and genuine cry with everything that you have. Literally, just help me, God. Just help me. And he responds to that, and he draws very, very close. And I'm sure persons who have been in serious distress could relate to what I'm feeling, to what I'm saying. And when he draws close, you get guidance. You get actual guidance on what to do, when to do it, how to do it. It's very specific. It was very specific with me, you know, and you somehow enter into this miracle season. I felt like I was in some kind of miracle season, you know, with things happening. Even now, you know, Ceronne is great, and there are other things that just happen all the time. It's some kind of miracle season, and it just draws me to the word. I study the Bible. I think the Bible has so much mysteries there that we can't even begin to understand. And just cry out, get quiet, get centered so that you can hear, because sometimes the noise and the chaos takes us out, affects our ability to be guided. You know, so I call it the eye of the storm. I try to get into the eye of the storm where there's peace and there's center. So you're not all the winds and this and the chaos, centered in the eye. And you would be amazed of the guidance that you would get. And when you follow it, you have to actually get the strength and the enablement to actually follow through with the guidance. But when you do, oh my gosh, it's astounding what is awaiting to be just, heaven will just open up to you.
And it's such a beautiful metaphor too, to find the eye of the storm, because that is the place of calm. I love that. You are such an inspiration, Saron, and I encourage you to keep sharing your story, because it is such a strong story of faith. And it is something that is needed, just that belief that you are being guided if only we would listen. And I know there are many women who would definitely be inspired by your faith. So, Saron, before we go, I also just want to ask you, is there anything you would tell your younger self?
Yes, I would tell her that everything that your mom is saying about the Bible and Jesus Christ is true. Everything that she's trying to to show you that you may not have been listening to then, or may not have understood then. My mom is passed now, but everything that she was telling you is absolutely 100% true. And there will come a point in time when you would witness it for yourself.
Wow. Yeah, and the thing is, as children, our unconscious mind is actually developing until 7, the age of 7. Most of the development is 0 to 3 and then on to 7. And the thing is, when your parents are speaking to you, thankfully you had a mom who was speaking those things into your unconscious mind, even though you would not have believed it, maybe because as children, we never think our parents know anything. And then we grow up to realize, wait, they were right all along. So again, thank you so much for all that you have shared. You are truly an amazing person, and I encourage you to use your voice as much as you are being guided to. If you are interested in contacting Ceronne, I will have all of her information in the description box below, so you can read her information. Her bio will be there as well, and I will leave her contact as well. Thank you again so much for watching. This is Shrestha Tiwari, and I will see you all again soon. Thank you. Bye.